Ting.
There's a comedian named Kumail Nanjiani who's Pakistani American, and he has a really funny bit about Call of Duty. Apparently, a recent game was set in Karachi, the capital of Pakistan, and he was saying, now the language of Pakistan is Urdu, but in Call of Duty, every single sign in Karachi is in Arabic. And this is a game that took 4 years to make. The shoelaces bounce. They literally, all they had to do was Google Pakistan language, and they were just like, who cares? I'm busy putting the stubble on this guy's beard. But he says that he loves it. He's like, worth selling out my people for. He's just, and his voice is just like, he's so happy. He's such a nerd. He doesn't care.
I love how there's been this trend in... There was this big comedy wave of people being like, actually, no, people do know about video games. If I do material about this, people will understand it. It kind of, it kind of started over here with Dara Brie, and it just kind of kept going.
And what's great is they have, like, because of podcasts and stuff, they get to have venues where you can have, like, comedians on to talk about video games and, like, be funny about it without, you know, having to, you know, respond to the lowest common denominator or whatever. Like, having specialized comedy podcasts is... been the best thing for comedy, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and there's having sort of these specialized, like Kumail runs a video game podcast called The Indoor Kids, which is really good. I listen to a comedy podcast about gay and feminist stuff that's really funny. There, you know, there's a podcast for like comedy advice and, you know, like looking up supernatural and paranormal things and being funny and just I've found so many good comedians that way.
There is just a bit for everything now. I'm loving KL Dye's new podcast, Less Than Live, and Night Vale. What? How did this even happen? It's amazing.
Yeah, that's like another big thing. It's just like the fact that something like Night Vale can flourish and find fans.
A Lovecraftian community radio station based in hell. It's... As a concept, how do you even sell that? But now it's gigantic. They're doing the sold-out European tour. The tickets sold out within tens of minutes. It was brilliant.
What's really cool about Night Vale is that they provided no visual sort of guidelines for what the characters look like, so people get to interpret whatever that looks like. And the last convention I went to, you know, you would just see gaggles of different Cecils and Carloses go by, and they all look different. I was like, that's great.
Exactly. The only thing they have in common, all these Carlos and Cecils, is that they both wear a bit of purple, and they're both adorable. Every single time. Just the fan art alone is amazing.
Yeah.
Just love it. Just love that Night Vale exists. And yeah, anyone can cosplay as Cecil. And I see a bunch of Cecilias as well and just be like, yeah, everything else works. Why not? There could be a plot where he changes genders. It could be a thing. Who knows? We have androgynous angels, so... It's marvellous. What a time to be alive.
Oh, yeah.
From what you said about the enthusiasm of robots being accepted, was there generally warm reception for the technological advances rather than a backlash?
In the story, you mean? A lot of that are things that I'm kind of keeping under wraps for now, in that I'll hint at it eventually, and I feel like I've started dropping breadcrumbs in the story here and there. I feel like it's one of those things where we're entering the story kind of at the cusp of the next big, you know, sort of sea change of public opinion and technology and stuff. Like, I feel like the story kind of covers the people who got it started and sort of like this cultural shift kind of happening over the next 20 years. And so I feel like, you know, I've dropped enough crumbs in there where, you know, there are people who probably are resistant to it in certain ways, and people who just kind of adopt it into their lives without batting an eyelid because it's technology and that's how people accept technology. But I don't know, I feel like a lot of the themes of the story involve how people will react to and adopt big social changes, and how people can be resistant to a thing and kind of, you know, get along with a thing in different measures and at different times in their lives. And I don't know, I feel like that can happen with big technological changes and big social and cultural changes. And yeah, I don't know, but I've entered out into a new point in the story where, you know, I think there's going to be something that triggers something big, is all I'm saying.
Oh, look forward to it, definitely.
Yeah. We're at the almost at the halfway point, I would say, of the story in general. So stuff is going to start happening more quickly, I think.
Do you see our world eventually matching the technology level of Al and Brendan's, or?
I think in some respects it's already there. Like I feel like a lot of what I've been dabbling with prosthetics in this world are things that we've gotten to and maybe even surpassed in some places. Like I don't know, I feel like it's one of those things where robots, as a lot of people depict them in, you know, comics and cartoons and things, are, you know, kind of going off in a different direction from how they're progressing in our timeline, I guess you would call it. Because in a lot of ways, we are working on some really cool, you know, practical robots. I don't know if you're familiar with Boston Dynamics or all. They're a group that gets funding from the Department of Defense, and they develop these four-legged and two-legged robots that are meant to be pack mules in like conflict zones, or like think like walking robots that can go into disaster areas or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those.
Yeah, there's one called the Big Dog that looks like a giant headless horse or donkey, and it's kind of creepy and kind of adorable. And they're just like a bunch of videos of this thing like walking around and going over mud and ice and being kicked and being able to recover on its own. And
wow, it's like a giant Meccano thing.
Yeah, it's just kind of, and it's like super loud, like it makes this buzzing noise like when it goes, so it's not the super like stealthy or most practical thing ever. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like we're starting to get there in a lot of respects, but I feel like our priorities are in different places too, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just going to be sort of different. And I feel like we also have some really interesting like biological and chemical innovations, like you know, growing organs and all sorts of interesting things that are again just different. Like I feel like that could be super interesting too. So yeah, I feel like we have a nostalgia for being able to have robots and flying cars and like a lot of that sort of mechanical thing. But we have some really cool like biological innovations that are happening too that I quite like. Yeah, I don't know. I like science. I like hearing about, you know, medical innovations, and like I just read something the other day about a scientist who developed a toxin to eradicate all of the tumor cells inside of like a brain, for example. Because usually when you extract a brain tumor, you can get most of it out, but if you miss just a few cells, it can regrow entirely.
Oh yeah.
So this guy developed a like a compound to identify every single cell, like to make it basically glow under a certain light so you could get them all. And he derives it from a scorpion's venom. Like it's really, he got from this crazy like chemical compound in a scorpion. So he's trying to basically kickstart it now, because apparently it's so weird and out there that people were reluctant to give it funding. So we're like, all right, I'll crowdfund this shit. I don't care. I'm gonna save kids' lives.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
It's really cool, and it's kind of interesting considering a lot of those big, super big innovations like prosthetic hands and things like that are getting funding from DARPA and the Department of Defense. Like, I don't know, that's kind of interesting too, and we haven't really seen that kind of stuff happen much yet either, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I guess that ties in as well with some of the most recent pages, with the idea being brought in that Alan Brennan got military funding to try and do these things.
I mean, that's
and not
kind
necessarily for evil purposes. That's
no, like
it's just a
thing
honestly,
they fund. Like a lot of major prosthetic innovations in America in the last decade have been from DARPA. There's the guy who invented the Segway, Dean Kamen, who's just kind of like an inventor extraordinaire. His big project was developing a prosthetic hand, because hand prosthetics are still like decades behind leg prosthetics for the most part. like, you know, because you have to do more and there has to be more sophistication. So he basically sought DARPA funding like a decade ago for what's called the Luke hand. Like that's the unofficial hand like from Star Wars is the Luke hand.
Oh,
And it
wow.
finally got through FDA trials and it's going to be on the market like in the next couple of years. And the only way they could fund it was through DARPA. Like that's how that stuff gets done. It's how the internet got funded and support. So I don't know. It's one of those things where, I mean, America has a really weird, complicated relationship with the Department of Defense, and a lot of our money gets sent there. But I mean, we get prosthetic hands and the internet from it too. Like it's more complicated than, you know, a lot of that stuff. And it's not necessarily malevolent, all of it. So I wanted to make sure, like, if I was going to be accurate and, you know, try and follow the same kind of process that a artificial intelligence developer would conceivably follow, the military would eventually get involved. Like that's just kind of how it is in the early 21st century in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's one of the two major things that people don't tend to put in a lot of these CSI-style TV shows where they have insane technologies in their labs for some reason, is that one, that, yeah, a lot of massive funding for crazy stuff comes from DARPA, and two is that most of these massive pieces of very expensive, fancy equipment are at universities, not in the hands of the CSI crime labs, because the unis have crazy stuff given to them for the sake of, and so much research happens there, and invention happens there. It's
yeah, they have the infrastructure and they have the manpower and just like all of that stuff. In that respect, I kind of fudged it. Like, there's not that many Dean Kamens running around that just have like a small staff and a bajillion dollars to throw around. So for like the sake of simplicity and focusing on like a few characters, I kind of fudged it in that respect. But I mean, in general, it's just kind of, you know, a lot of it can be a cult of personality in science. People like having an individual to look at, like a Dean Kamen or a Mark Zuckerberg. There's this one lady that's been in the news recently because she basically developed a like a blood testing infrastructure that's getting introduced into pharmacies and things like that. Like this, she's like the youngest female billionaire in the country. She's like maybe in her early 30s. Her name's Elizabeth Holmes, I think her name is. But yeah, like there's very much a culture of, you know, smart, charismatic, you know, inventor type, revolutionary people. And I kind of like that sort of thing as well. Did I get her name right?
Yeah, Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Very cool photos, and a lot of them on the covers of magazines. You're right. Wow.
Yeah, she got a lot. I think she got profiled in Wired first, and now everyone's kind of picking up after Wired, as they generally do.
Which is not a terrible thing, as long as, you know, Wired keeps up the levels it's going.
No. I've been reading Wired since I was 13 years old, so they're sort of the way they're good at like telling stories and making science accessible and like talking about interesting people in the realms of technology. Like that probably was a big influence on me too.
Awesome.
Yeah. Wired magazine was my most influential teen magazine.
I love that as a concept. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. That's brilliant. Yeah. I hope Wired to hear that.
Yeah, I'm meaning to tell them one day. Honestly, all it took was having Lisa Simpson read Wired in an episode. And then when I sought it out, I saw women on the cover for 2 months in a row. And I was like, I can read this.
Epic.
Yeah, it was great.
Let's see. I guess continuing that vein then, what are your favorite works of sci-fi?
Let me think. You know, there's a lot of books that I've read. You know, I mentioned some authors that I really like. In terms of comics, one comic that I got introduced to in the last couple years was Concrete by Paul Chadwick, which is about a guy who's abducted by aliens, I think it was, and then he is returned in this like impenetrable, like cement-like body. So he can't really be a regular person anymore. Like he's still got his brain, but he's got this like crazy impenetrable body. So he basically decides to spend the rest of his life like doing, you know, feats of superhuman strength and endurance and write about it. And it's him trying to figure out if he's like, what about him is still a person, like a human being. Like it's kind of, you know, science fiction with heart and that kind of stuff I really like. I really liked stuff like that. A lot of Osamu Tezuka's kind of science fiction comics, and I liked Full Metal Alchemist and that kind of stuff growing up in high school. In terms of movies, like, I don't know. Yeah, lots of like goofy, you know, B movies and, you know, 40s and 50s science fiction movies. Twilight Zone, big influence. I don't know. I feel like I grab a lot of stuff from a lot of different places, but I like science fiction that has a strong cast of characters instead of just exploring a concept. Like I feel like without that human element, it's hard for me to warm up to something.
Yeah, there's less relatability. It's good when something manages to have both of those things. It's a brilliant and rare combination.
Yeah, the book that I was reading right now, the alternative history one, like the general synopsis is interesting, just kind of following a civilization, but you basically have these like handful of characters that get reincarnated throughout the generations. So you're following the same people, just in different cultures, and they, you know, they might be a man in one chapter and be a woman in the next time round. And yeah, so it's like you kind of see those same people evolve and kind of learn from their mistakes, even ever so slightly, and see how their culture influenced their personalities and stuff like that is interesting.
Oh yeah,
Because I don't know if I would.
Cloud Atlas kind of thing.
Yeah, it is a lot like Cloud Atlas now that I think about it. Like it's a little more, I think, comprehensive. But yeah, speaking of which, Cloud Atlas I quite liked. Like there was one, I mean, the chapter with the clones and the, you know, futuristic South Korea was the most, you know, I think the strongest one in my opinion. But in general, it was a really interestingly structured book. I haven't seen the film yet.
No, I still need to. Again, I have a long list of things to go through. Well, I grew in a tiny countryside, and so like it was like, oh, civilization. I have a lot to catch up on. That's why I empathise a lot with Steve Rogers.
Where did you grow up?
Bedale, North Yorkshire.
Oh, okay.
Yorkshire's the more rural side of England. It's got a lot more personality to it, though, which is nice. And a lot of more varied accents. There's some marvellous accents. There's a comedian that I know a lot of Americans I know like called Sarah Millican, who has a Geordie accent, and Geordies are from Newcastle. And that's a really strong, lovely sounding accent. It's just so chirpy, bubbly. It sounds bubbly inherently. Like a Geordie always sounds like they're having a good time and are slightly tipsy. If you could have any cybernetic implant or part, what would it be? And I do ask this to everyone, but now it's a really relevant question.
See, I am reluctant to get a cybernetic implant. Like, if I lost a body part tomorrow and I could get it replaced with anything available now, I would be very reluctant. At that point, I would probably say legs, because the cybernetic legs do the job, but, you know, they don't keep me from doing anything super important. Like, at some point, it might be cool to have, like, a cybernetic hand that is drastically different from a biological hand. That might be kind of cool. Or, like, an eye or something like that. But if that was the case, I would, like, wait to be woken up from 100-year cryo sleep, where there's cool stuff like that available instead of, like, vaguely rudimentary prosthetics. So if it was today, I would say, like, some awesome Alexander McQueen legs. I don't know.
That's a very good answer.
Yeah, like some blade legs, some like carbon fiber scythe blade legs. That would make cool.
I do love those things. The people that run in those things is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, having seen people go, like, and just be completely light and just zip along, like, that would just be so interesting to experience.
I mean, I don't know how it was in America, but the Paralympic coverage over here from the last Olympics exceeded so much of the interest over the regular Olympics. It was amazing. It's the first time it's happened, and it was advertised far more heavily as well.
There was this advertisement that I guess must have been from the London Paralympics that is, no joke, one of the best ads I've ever seen. Like, it's set to a Public Enemy song, and it just shows the Paralympic team, and they're just this row of badasses. Like, it's kind of this mini narrative. Like, it introduces these cool people, and then there's like a cut of just like a car flipping over or like a bomb going off, kind of like explaining the narrative of how people get to be amputees, like if it's congenital or an accident. And then it's just these people like fucking playing basketball in wheelchairs and just like diving and having no arms. And it's just, it is the most life-affirming Olympics commercial I've ever seen. Like, I might have to see if I should link you to that, because like that kind of mini narrative is like the coolest. I love that.
That'd be awesome.
I'd never really seen anything like that.
Please do. I saw a ton of billboard adverts at the time, but none of the TV spot ones, because I didn't really have a TV back then. But I know that that was one of the interesting differences, that was during the London Olympic Games, pretty much every athlete we could had some kind of tie-in, some kind of brand that they could try and fund the Olympics with. There was these people advertising Subway, these people advertising this hotel for their bikes, these people advertising this thing. But with the Paralympics, it was more, we want people to watch that at all. So here's a really cool billboard poster, like it's a TV series, of like white front lit, kind of in darkness, people looking awesome at a camera, and they all are wearing their equipment. And it was just epic looking. Yeah,
it's so good. And it is like a completely different narrative from what I think we've expected from that sort of thing. And I think in general, like, public attitude towards prosthetics and just what we would consider general disability has changed a lot. And I think that has to do with sort of the big advances we've seen in, you know, what prosthetics have been made available in the last like decade or so. Like the fact that you can make these carbon fiber legs that are like perfectly efficient, even more so than a regular human limb, or that you can 3D print. Oh, hi, Eddie. that you can like 3D print limbs to do the job that you want them to do, and that you can change your height and you can change your speed and stuff like that. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. And we've, you know, it's one of those things where people are seriously talking about like, well, maybe that is better to be able to choose that kind of stuff without suffering any major disability. Like, I don't know. I think that conversation's fairly new.
Oh, definitely.
It's very interesting.
It was one of the things that, I can't remember her name now, the lady with the cheetah legs you mentioned earlier.
Amy Mullins,
Amy Mullins, the thing that Amy Mullins said in her TED Talk, well, one of them, she had two, was that she was at a party and she was wearing extra long legs to suit the outfit she was wearing. And her friend literally said, "That's not fair."
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, the wording in this. That's... Yes, it's massively changing. And there's been a media push for it as well. The Paralympics got so much coverage. How to Train Your Dragon's done incredibly well with some very prosthetic, albeit wooden and metal prosthetic.
Well, like, speaking of like cosplay and stuff on like conventions, like the amount of people who have a leg prosthetics that will go to conventions dressed as Hiccup is like, it's apparently that's a big thing now.
It's massively on the rise. There's some fantastic pictures of it on Tumblr. It's brilliant seeing that kind of thing. It's like, yes, someone's been made that you can do, and you're doing them so well. It's fantastic. Does anybody know the source of this picture? I've found a few different people who posted it originally on Tumblr and Pinterest instead of reblogging it, but even they're doing it secondhand, saying this is an awesome cosplay. No one said that it's actively their thing. It looks amazing. If the person's out there, I would love to credit them.
It's pretty cool. And like from a personal aspect, when I was in high school, for a while I lived with someone who was I think it's paraplegic when it's below the waist. I can't remember, but he was paralyzed from the waist down, but he was a triathlete. Like, he was always super, super active, and then he went to this massive triathlon called the Ironman. I don't know if you know it, in Hawaii. but it's like this grueling triathlon where you swim in the ocean for half a mile and then you bike for several miles, like along this volcanic national park on the Big Island in Hawaii, and then you run. And then that's for like full-bodied athletes, but for the wheelchair athletes, like the amount of just like the sheer work you have to do, like they have these bikes that are like hand pedaled, right? That are for the bike portion. And then there's like the push, the speed wheelchairs for the running portion. But for swimming, all they basically have are just like floaties that they put on their legs. Their legs don't drag them under when they're swimming in the ocean. Like they're just like, there's just massive upper body strength and like living with him for over a year or so and like, you know, kind of adjusting like a lot of practical adjustments to like just living in a house and making sure there were ramps or like, you know, stuff about being in the car and blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, I think a lot of people are more have experienced that kind of thing or like experienced those adjustments. And I don't know, maybe that was kind of part of it too, was me being mindful of that initially kind of helped me be more aware of that later on. But yeah, the capabilities that people have, especially athletes or, you know, just people who are in just top form. It's outstanding. It was really cool.
It has been awesome talking with you, Blue. Thank you for staying so long. I expected half an hour, and it's kind of got. This will be in multiple parts, I think.
Oh no, that's okay. I completely lost track of time, and that's no problem at all.
So long as you didn't have other vital Kickstarter plugging things to do. Fantastic.
Nope. This has been kind of my day off, so this worked out well.
Day offs are good, definitely. Let's see. So
yeah.
I'm just making it slightly bigger.
What are your earrings, can I ask? I was trying to get a good look at them.
Oh, they're resistors cased in resin.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Closer.
Oh, I really like those because it looked like it was something and something. I was like, is it a bug? Is it a crystal? I couldn't figure it out.
No, there's this gorgeous little shop in Huddersfield called Crafty Praxis, and it's owned by this one woman, and she makes so many interesting things. Like I've got some other earrings that are like 2 chains, and they attach old style light bulbs, and she's made a whole necklace of light bulbs as well, and little Scrabble pieces, just anything that would look cool. She's like, well, I have glue, I have a whole soldering iron, I'll figure it out. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing. A friend of mine is doing their work experience there, and so I just went to visit them one day. I was like, oh, and there goes my money. Plus,
whoops.
It's amazing. It's plug for that. Why not? So yeah, right, tiny light bulbs.
Oh my god! Yeah, you're right. Are they blue or is that just the lighting?
Oh, it's just the lighting. They're see-through, and there's a gold top.
Oh, cute. Yeah, I like those. And they're not super big. Like, they look like they'd be about the same size as the ones you're wearing. I can't tell.
Oh, they're a lot smaller than the ones that I'm wearing are huge. Okay. These are about the size of an ear. But the bulbs are quite small.
I like those.
She's got, like, taken dollhouse bits and just made teacups.
Oh. Have you seen those polymer clay earrings that look like teeny tiny food?
What?
There's like this big, talk about like a big internet trend. There are people who run entire channels showing you how to make teeny tiny food out of polymer clay. And there are people who've made like jewelry and earrings out of it. So you can get like a little one that's like a little turkey dinner or like bacon and eggs. It's really cute.
The Google images in this are amazing.
Oh my god, I can't even imagine. Let me look it up. Tiny polymer clay food.
Tiny donuts.
There's a YouTube channel whose videos I will occasionally put on to fall asleep, and there's one called like Sugar Charm Shop, I think it's called, and it's this lady with a very soothing voice and amazing manicures who will just make perfectly photorealistic food out of clay, and she'll it's great. It's very soothing.
I love how some people have just become massive on YouTube, and they're just different from each other as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the whole thing. Oh wow, Clockwork Heart.
I think a lot of these folks, they're kind of like the spiritual successor to, oh, I don't know if you know him. Do you know Bob Ross? He was like this painter on American public access television for a long time.
Oh no, I don't.
He was like
Oh, I've no, but I've seen him referenced in a ton of
with
American
the
comedy
afro.
videos. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
he was
such a
just
sweet
like,
man. Mhm.
yeah, just very soothing voice, just showing you how to paint this thing. And I feel like a lot of people grew up watching him and are just like, I'm going to show people how to make my weird things and just do it in a very calm and happy voice.
Mhm.
And I think the internet is the perfect niche for that.
Exactly, and so you get people like Hannah Hart who's just like, I'm gonna make
Yes.
burritos
Oh my
while
gosh.
getting quite drunk. Enjoy.
Speaking, speaking of which, you know Hannah Hart's going to be on an episode of Bee and Puppy Cat?
What?
I
No
backed the
way.
Kickstarter and they've been doing little like updates, email updates, and
Mhm.
they're like, guess who we've had in the studio this week? And there's Hannah Hart, and I'm just like,
Oh my god.
yeah.
Oh, I love all three of them. Hannah, Mamrie, and Mamrie's ridiculous, and Grace. Oh god, I didn't know that at all. I know that
Yep.
I knew that Ash from Hey Ash, What You Playing is in there as well.
Yeah,
They're
I heard
playing.
Ego Raptor from Game Grumps will be on. But yeah, Hannah Hart is
God,
I don't know for how long or how many episodes, but she's definitely there for at least one. So
that is awesome. She was also in I don't know if you know The Most Popular Girls in School.
no, I don't.
Oh, it's a hilarious YouTube thing. It's stop motion with Barbie dolls, hyperbolizing cheerleader cliques by having them
Mm.
be like, talk about the bathroom hierarchies and who owns the bathroom, and you can only go in here if you're a cheerleader, who watches the door, and it's ludicrous and insane and hyperbolous, and it just goes completely off a tangent after a while and becomes self-aware. Uh,
All right, I gotta look that up.
it's
I've got it
amazing.
all queued up.
And there's a point where there's a parent-teacher conference, and all the characters get brought in, and their parents get brought in, and Mamrie, Hannah, and Grace are brought in to be the parents of the three main characters.
Hmm.
Oh, that was another thing I wanted to ask. The 18 plus extra comic, first
Yes.
time. I don't know if that's something you want to keep secret or what. Don't think I read
Nope,
anything. Oh,
that's been broadcast, on the main Kickstarter page.
oh, good.
Basically, I was interested in doing a print only, ages 18 and over, sexy comic,
Mhm,
basically, starring two of the protagonists. And, it was something fun that I'd wanted to do for a while,
mhm.
but I knew I didn't want it, like in an unlimited numbers or online. Like I thought it'd be a fun special limited thing for my first Kickstarter ever. So yeah, there's still levels where you can get a copy of that if you are so inclined,
Mhm.
but they are going quickly. So
Well,
yeah,
what I was going to ask was, it's called First Time. Is it secret whose first time it is? Because there's two pairs of people it could be relating to.
yes. Well, it stars Ellen Brendan,
Awesome.
and yeah, it's about their first, sexual encounter,
Mhm,
but it's also kind of a double meaning
mhm.
in for Al in particular. So that is all I will say about that.
Brilliant. I will have to look forward to
Yeah.
that. And if people are wondering, you can find other awesome sexy comics Blue has made in both of the Smut Peddlers. Is it both? I
Yes.
think definitely the latest one.
Yep. I'm in both editions.
Hmm. Honesty is a fantastic story. Just love
I'm
the.
so glad people liked it. I didn't know how people would feel about it, but I had a lot of fun working on that one.
It's so real. The bit where they're like, it's awesome. Both of them are awesome. Totally heavily recommended. Smut Peddler in general is just brilliant.
Oh my God. Yeah.
The
That was
the
like,
people
it's
that
just
go
run
into
so
that.
well.
Oh, mhm,
And the editor, Spike Trotman, is amazing. I'm a big fan of what she does, and
mhm,
she's working on a bunch of really interesting, sexy projects. So
mhm.
keep your eyes on her as well. So yeah, I'm super duper happy with how the last few years of my life have gone.
Hell yeah!
Yeah.
Glad for it. The Kickstarter is going super well. Everyone should check it out. Uh, if you back it, it's most likely definitely gonna go down because it's over halfway already.
Yeah, it's been a little over 48 hours and we've hit halfway, and it's going on through November 15th. And there's a bunch of different levels and some Kickstarter exclusive things, like a Kickstarter exclusive comic.
Hmm.
And those levels are limited and they're going fast. So if you are interested in that sort of thing, then, you know, be on top of that. But yeah, I'm super optimistic. I think it'll go well.
It's all super exciting. There is international shipping as well. It's just $10 more, which
Yep.
is like £6, so it's not that much at all when you think about it.
Hmm.
People can check out links to the Kickstarter below. Definitely, definitely back it. And it's been amazing talking to you. Hope you have a fantastic campaign and you overfund like crazy.
Thank you so much, Harry. Have a good one.
You too.